Thank you for joining us today. For the folks that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is John Sugatan. I'm the Global Head of Executive Engagement for C Vision International. Excited for this closing AI topic that we have for our virtual council series. Before I hand it over to the speakers that you really wanted to see today, I wanted to just kind of set the stage for everyone. This is an intimate gathering, right? We've had the pleasure of having some of our top community members be a part of this virtual council to engage and really kind of have an opportunity to hear from some of our speakers. The only thing I'll caveat is hold your questions in terms of vocal questions until the end. However, we want to hear your thoughts and your questions through the chat. So if there is a conversation or a question that our panelists are currently covering that you want to chime in, or at least want our speakers to kind of elaborate on, feel free to do that on the chat. Engage that way. And towards the back end of our virtual council, we're going to release everyone into more of an open discussion. So you have an opportunity to kind of share your thoughts, your experiences, and most importantly, right, share some of your expertise as well. With that said, I'd love to invite our virtual panelists for today. Our title of our panel is The Business Value of Copilot and AI in the Modern Workplace. I think as we dove into 2024 this year, we've had a lot of opportunities to really understand where does AI play in the space. We want to have a more direct and real conversation around that, right? I think the hype stage of the technology was 2023. Now we're jumping into really understanding where does it sit in terms of our day-to-day functions. So with that said, I'm excited to introduce our featured chair and moderator for our virtual council, Kathleen Hurley. Kathleen, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, John. That was a great introduction. So I think that's a really good way to think of it. The hype is behind us, and now it's time to talk about the real value. And part of that is not just the real value in terms of dollars, but the business value of Copilot and AI in the modern workplace. So we've got some great experts brought together today, and we want to talk about transformative impact of AI. How is digital transformation going to encompass and embrace AI, but also change management on modern work? How are we going to, as leaders, ensure that this is non-disruptive to whatever extent it can be, right? And really transformational in the best sense. And so we're going to talk about all of these things, probably plus some more: revenue growth, change optimization, and let's see who's here to talk to you about these things today. So Margaret, do you want to lead off with a little bit of an introduction of yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm thrilled to be here. I recognize a bunch of names on here. I was recently at the event in New York City, and so it's great to reconnect with folks from that event. And if I didn't meet you then, and I'm new to you today, I'm Margaret Hahn. I'm the associate partner for our modern work team here at Valorum Reply. So what I do and what we do at Reply is really help organizations think about how to reinvent and think differently and transform their organizations. Now, when I think about the importance of AI and what we're doing there, it's really all about helping transform how people work, streamlining your overall operations, and supporting working smarter, and really reinventing how we work together and reinventing your business. So I'm thrilled to be here. My background, I've been in technology for about 20 years, and my background has largely been focused on the people side of technology. So thinking about that adoption change management, I've led massive change transformation and technology transformations on the Google side, on the Microsoft side. So I'm really thrilled to be here with you all and talk about this amazing business value of Copilot and Gen AI.
That's fantastic. Thank you for joining us. And Gopal, do you want to go next?
Yeah,
Thanks. Been in this industry, especially online commerce and retail, for 20 plus years. I've been CTO for multiple startups. On this call, I'd like to bring some perspectives from the CTO point of view. How you use emerging technology to enable a technology platform that helps businesses to transform them from one generation to another generation. Whenever there is a disruption like major technological shift, we had from client servers to online businesses where e-commerce emerged. And from there, their data center-based platforms to cloud-based. And now we are seeing from software-based to pure AI-enabled code writing, per se. I have some experience to share there. I'll be very happy to collaborate with every other panelist here to bring the best knowledge out of this session. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Russ?
Absolutely. So hi, everybody. Russ Felker, CTO at Trinity Logistics, third-party logistics firm. If you have something to ship, we help you find out where, what carrier can take it. Bigger than a parcel. If you hand me like a package, I'll just run it down to UPS myself. But if you need a full truckload, I got you. It's fine. Just call me. But as the CTO, one of the big things is I've transitioned over the years, many years of being in technology, of managing technology to managing people, managing outcomes of the implementation of technology. And I think that's a big shift as we look at, coming from a technology background and working directly with the technology as a programmer or network administrator versus where we are today. And these types of disruptive technologies, whether it's the internet or whatever, has a large impact on how we think about technology and how we interact with technology and how we use technology in our day-to-day lives. And I think that's a lot of what we'll talk about today is the changes that generative AI tool sets, whether in a standalone thing like Copilot or in a embedded within a tool set, which of course every tool set now seems to have some sort of generative AI built into it, but how that is impacting our day-to-day work and the change and the angst and the all those things that go along with it. I was just it was a executive coaching session. It was talking about the psychology of change and how all of us are adverse to change because we assume that it will kill us. That's what our brains are wired for. Oh, I know that cave because I know who's in that cave, but I don't know who's in that cave. So something will probably kill me there. So we've got to, help our people get past the AI will kill us. So just don't, block all streaming of Terminator and we should be fine. So.
Is that called catastrophizing?
Yes, catastrophizing. But
I love that word.
Yeah, we do that with every change that happens. We don't necessarily exactly think it's going to kill us, but that's what our brains are doing.
Low-fat cream cheese? No way. It's
No,
it'll
kill us.
Yeah. So, Russ, with that in mind, maybe you can start off with our first question. Thinking about how your organization currently is approaching AI, particularly tools like Copilot, which are, LLM-based agents, how do you use it today, and how do you see the role evolving over the next near term?
Yep. And I think like a lot of organizations, the primary use case has been to rewrite that email or come up with 5 ideas for this thing. And that's been the predominant utilization of these types of kind of, Copilot or a ChatGPT or any of these kind of, kind of standalone chat-based LLMs that are there. The interesting, I think, change that's occurring is the introduction of agency and agency capabilities into the systems, and now helping people to understand that won't just answer the question, but could actually end up doing something. And so that's been the most recent change. But I think that even today, while there are different focused systems, potentially like a Gamma app or something like that, Gamma.app or whatever, that can create things for you and stuff like that. Most people in most roles simply use it as a writing assistant. And that's true in my organization today, outside of technology. And this is, I think, one of the interesting things and the interesting positions that technology is in, because so much of what we do is structured and lends itself so directly to what AI is actually good at, which is creating something structured and then putting that into effect. And so our opportunity to use it and to leverage it has grown, I think, much faster than maybe other areas of an operations team or even a sales team, other than that kind of writing assistant. We have a mandate. Nobody writes code from scratch at my company, period.
Right.
And
Because why? Right.
right.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Why would you take the time to do that? Let somebody write it and then edit it. And so we're actually changing our training to code review as a core skill. And that's a big change for even an engineer one. You as an engineer one, you need to be able to review code, not write code necessarily at this point. So I think that's an interesting change, and I think we're seeing a lot more impacts within that technology area of these tools.
Margaret, I saw you come off mic. Did you have something to add in there?
I mean, I think laddering up on what Russ was saying, I think it really is when we work with organizations and when we use Gen AI and Copilot ourselves, there really is that foundation of thinking about creation, overcoming the blank page, really getting a leg up on starting. And that's a fantastic place to start. If you are just coming into the world of Gen AI, just coming into Copilot, that's really where we're recommending people start thinking about overcoming the blank page, creativity, creation, and then also making your meetings a lot more effective and thinking about how do you supercharge and superpower your meetings with Copilot, especially if you're meeting through Teams or something like that. But then where I'm really excited is about taking it to that next level as you're growing in your maturity, thinking about those Copilot agents, thinking differently, not only about how you work, but also what are all the systems and tools and where do you have your data? And then how can we use something like a custom Copilot agent that we've built for you to connect all of that and then really transform how you're working, whether that's bringing all the information you need in one place to help you make more data-driven decisions, or like Russ was saying, really action upon and start making something happen beyond the creation of content or bringing you information.
Taking the structure, taking the content and making something happen next. Gopal, how have you guys been able to leverage AI to date, and what do you see happening in the near term?
Yeah, definitely. Just like Russ mentioned, our engineers are code reviewers. We're not there yet, but we significantly
It's a
made
process.
strides, strides in that direction. One of the major areas for us, because I have gone through multiple mergers and acquisitions through my career, acquired companies, assessed them, and merged the platforms into one common platform. Especially in the e-commerce, when you have multiple platforms to maintain, you maintain multiple teams of engineers, which is inefficient for any organization. With the recent acquisition, what we have done is let's merge all the acquired company platform into the major acquiring company, which is on Java, and acquired company was on PHP. Now comes the refactoring. Everyone would say refactoring takes this much of time because we need to rewrite all this logic. Now is application mapping. We could do that because we have the application things and a list of applications. Now rewriting some of the duplicate application or merging the duplicate applications into the main platform, and then rewriting those unique applications for the acquired company to the main was the major challenge. This is where Copilot came into our practical help. As of now, we migrated 80% of those using Copilot help, especially rewriting code in PHP, translating that logic over to Java, and doing a pure Q&A and applying it on the acquiring company's platform, which transformed several of the applications over to the main platform, and we are able to do it in a significantly faster way. When I had to go through this 5 years ago, my experience was different. We had to make prioritization and give a 18-month timeline for the business, that this is how long it takes to refactor. And then they would say, I'd rather use those engineering power to develop new features. So we used to acquire something called tech debt. For those who are aware of this term, tech debt is really you take shortcuts in order to achieve some business results that leaves you with a wrong foundational code that will bite you down the line when you have to add extra features or make enhancements to the software stack. So that we are able to avoid in this experience. So my experience with pre-Copilot merger and acquisition to post-Copilot merger and acquisition is drastically different. We are more efficient. We can go to business and say, here is something I can do within 3 months instead of 18 months timeline. And that gets into the change management, other topics we're going to talk about today, but I'll stop there and say, I have practical deployment experience of doing this and able to show the business the value of Copilot, especially writing the code, refactoring the code from one language to another.
And when you're talking to executives and you're trying to help them understand for any technology, the efficiency, optimization, risk management, how to use technology to innovate while running operations. This is difficult, right? We all know this is difficult. But with AI, it's been exceptionally difficult because you're using something that's very imaginary to a lot of executives. And so you're having to explain the imaginary technology at the same time that you're explaining operations. And so what you have shown is something very concrete that is really impressive. Are there other challenges or other opportunities that you see when talking to executives about operations goals or the implementations of efficiency? Go, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, one other area, which is not on the engineering side, but on content generation. Most of our retail, they will have item descriptions. Even for CPGs, there will be item description, which has to be either manually written or coming from certain source. Now, in a sports trading card collectibles market, you need to write a story behind a card so that the auction value will be much higher and things like that. In this kind of situations, writing a content and description of an item in an auction marketplace is very important, and that has to be effective and customized towards the end user or whoever is going to buy that. This was very interesting when we proposed a Copilot-based editing software, or inserting the Copilot in the editing workflow for item description. There was a huge resistance because I had 20 different content writers. What about my job? If machine is doing my job. So now I need to convince them how it will improve the efficiency. You can have multiple descriptions for the same item, which is tailored towards the persona of the person who is viewing it. Now, if someone with a certain demographics and certain historical activities views one content for the same item, the person with a different background can be reading a different content. This level of personalization is possible. In the past, in retail, what we did is personalization is whether we show him a toothbrush or whether we show him a Christmas dress. Those are the decisions we made depending on their activity. Now, even for a Christmas dress, we can write a different kind of description, and that can be personalized as well with this Copilot. So that's where we are heading into. In this situation, there was a resistance. That is the challenge. We need to show them the value coming in and how you can do more with 10-member team rather than just expanding the team. So now they are all excited. So that is how you overcome the challenges, show the value, communicate that, and they will be overcome the challenges as well. Definitely
Yeah.
there are challenges. Yeah, Russ may have more ideas.
Well, no, to your point though, it changes the, you mentioned how, and Kathleen, you asked this, and Gopal, you think you illustrated it really well with both your examples. It's, what's the ROI on AI? Because everybody wants to know what the ROI is. What's the ROI? Well, okay. If I make people more efficient, the only way you actually get, true ROI, measurable dollars, is if you fire people. That's it. That's the only way you can actually do that, if you just make people more efficient. So you have to think about it in terms of time to value. And I think both of the thing, especially the first one, cutting 18 months to 3 months, it's, hey, we can maintain both of these systems separately and work for 18 months to get here, or we can do this in 3 months with AI. Your time to value is so compressed in that sense. And really the same with your content writers. You want to have these more personalized descriptions. Well, that's going to take a long time for you as a person to remember all of the descriptions that have been written in the past, which nobody's going to do, and also write things that are slightly different, appeal to a different demographic, whatever it might be. You can use AI to get there faster, and hence you increase the value of your product, and but you decrease the time it takes to get to the recognition of that value in the product. And I think that's a core difference in this. And it's not truly a difference. The same thing could have been said of the internet when it first came out. And you have to come to my store. Now you can be at home and see it online. You're not really selling, there is the potential to sell more because your audience is potentially wider. But even if you just take the same customer, all you're really doing is decreasing your time to value of that customer's purchase. AI can do the same thing. It has that capability. What I say this to my people all the time, and I'm sure you've said something similar to your content writers. AI is not going to take your job. Like my coders, when we first introduced it, were like, well, are you just going to have AI write it? I was like, no. I mean, yes, it is going to write it, but you have to review it. It's not like we don't trust AI. So AI is not going to take your job, but somebody that uses AI well is absolutely going to take your job. So
Yeah, you said it right, Russ.
yeah, you better be the one that knows how to use it. That's the goal here, because that's the person that has that improved value within their current organization or in a different organization for that matter.
I think that's really well said. Margaret, you have a lot of thoughts about employee health and wellness too around AI. So talk to us about how you have to embrace this and help insert it culturally.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really important when we're thinking about putting AI into an organization through kind of a program or through a strategic lens. We also have to think that people are probably already using it. And what we want to do is, by bringing it in strategically, we want to make sure that we're protecting the organization through bringing in this strategic lens of Gen AI. So I actually had a lot of conversations this weekend socially around why would someone use something like Copilot when ChatGPT is out there, and thinking about that risk mitigation of, people are using ChatGPT, but they should be using something like Copilot that's a lot more secure and protected, and you're not essentially feeding the model with your your proprietary data and all of that. But then, since people are already starting to use it, it really is about empowering them to be more innovative with Gen AI. Telling the story that, yeah, we hear that you're afraid that Gen AI is going to take your job, just like Russ was saying, that no, it's not going to take your job. The idea is it's going to help you be better at the things that we hired you to do, so you don't have to spend time doing the things that bog down your day every day. So, in my world, I have to fill out a timesheet every day. So we've actually built a Copilot agent that helps me fill out my timesheet every day by looking at the activity I've done and my allocations and helping build that into our timesheet reporting, because that's not a great use of my time, but it's really important that it gets done. And then thinking about telling that story through stories, through champions, through people who have those really great examples, just like Gopal had. Those two really good examples, creating influence and excitement around Gen AI, and then thinking about right now, coming into the holiday season, right? There's a lot of people that are about to take time off, and we want people are working harder than ever. We want them to be happy and healthy and fulfilled in their roles. I'm working with a lot of organizations to do a campaign around Copilot and the holidays. So Copilot's going to help enable you to take time off for you to really rest and recharge. Some of those meetings are still going to happen, but Copilot's going to be there as your assistant, paying attention and pulling that information. So when you come back in January, you're ready to hit the ground running. So that's one. There can be campaigns around well-being in Copilot. We're also seeing diversity, equity, and inclusion campaigns around Copilot, specifically for women in meetings who are often told, hey, you got to take meeting notes. Okay, great. So let's actually free up people who would be actively taking those meeting notes. Let's let Copilot do that and let people have an equal seat at the table to be able to actively participate instead of being passive there.
Yeah, we've actually introduced gamification around
Yeah.
AI usage just within the tech team, because like as I said earlier, we're the people that can really leverage it the most, but also be the ones that can be those champions, can bring it to the rest of the organization. And so we started just putting in competitions between our individual kind of sub departments of, okay, who had the most meeting notes taken by AI of all the meetings that you attended. And it's easy enough to track because it's all tracked in a system, but oh my gosh, if anybody's taking notes on meetings anymore, that's just
yeah. And if you're taking them on your own, that's fine, just to make sure you're remembering stuff and you're still paying attention.
If that's how you learn, true. Yeah, I mean, some people learn by writing it down. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I agree. I think unlocking that your brain to no longer have to do that really enables a culture of innovation to be able to take things to the next level. Great. We did this one thing with Copilot. What's another problem we can solve? And really thinking about going into 2025, we're working with a fair amount of organizations thinking about not only their AI governance, but an AI innovation board around, let's talk about the projects we've already done. What problems do we see in the organization, and how do we think we can leverage Copilot and Gen AI to help solve those problems?
Yeah.
Are you guys talking about 4-day work week yet?
There's just an article out on that. I think Financial Times or something about
On that lighter note, it is about how do you use that extra day? For example, in our situation, how do you use that 12 months? The 18 months reduced to 3 months. What do you use the left out 15 months productivity for? That is for our innovation of our core business model. That's where we put our effort into. That way we get better at what we do instead of writing code, which is required, kind of mundane in a sense, and we can drive more towards the new features, new functionalities, which directly affect our customers. That's how we are using it. It is not 4-day workday yet, but we are using that extra time for innovation and drive that change that is needed for business.
Have
And I
you
think,
seen that start to happen? Have you seen Copilot freeing up time to allow people to do more R&D and innovation?
Yeah, definitely the example I brought up about clearing the tech debt and transformation, definitely that would have taken longer time. Um, did that reduce the, if we had the budget, I would hire more in the past, right? Now, the company bottom line will be much better, which definitely affects the overall investor value at the same time, and also the customer satisfaction. So it is helping in both directions, and employees benefit in the middle.
yeah, I think that's a good point that, another item that, or another financial impact is the AI has, we talk about time to value decreasing, but also cost avoidance due to scaling. So your business can continue to scale without a linear scaling that you might have had in the past of your team. So you don't need as many people to execute at or even above the level you were able to execute before having these assistants available in these different areas. And so that's another area we use to illustrate the value of bringing in different types of AI, from Copilot to conversational AIs to various things like that, is that cost avoidance of, well, normally if you got 100 more customers, that would mean you added 8 more team members. Now, because of this and this and this, that can be 4 new team members, but you still scaled to 100 more customers. And that kind of math is something that's a little bit new for many of the people on the executive team. So it's taken a little bit to get them down that path and kind of going to. Now, of course, you then have to commit to the cost avoidance. You have to subscribe to it. But
Yeah, that makes sense. Margaret, what about innovation that you're seeing? You spoke to it a little bit across some of your partners. What other ideas are you seeing out there? Anything
Yeah,
good?
absolutely. A lot of the innovation we're seeing is both on that agent side, thinking about connecting and building those custom copilots. But one example that's really top of mind, just because I was working on this last week with a customer, that we were working with a sales organization that focuses on automotive. And so we were doing a copilot adoption change management effort with them, kind of trying to realize the value on their investment of Copilot. And we did a little bit of a hackathon, or like a promptathon. So we did an event with them, or we called it pints and prompts. And so it was a 4 o'clock meeting. We sent everybody a little gift card if they wanted to get their own pint and bring it. We did that, and we talked about problems to solve and started building out really longer prompts to help them innovate and solve some of their problems. So we actually ended up coming out of that session with a custom prompt for them that helped them do research on potential customers, identify all of the areas that they would have in their profile for the customer, and then also search the web for other activities that might be going on with that customer, building out a profile that it automatically put it into their CRM. And then how we built it, it went into a Word document, and they were able to turn that into a visual proposal in PowerPoint. And
That's
it wasn't 100%
fantastic.
perfect, but it got them really, really close. And so now something that might have taken them 2 days to do, they now are able to do that in about an hour, and then start thinking around the innovation of how can they innovate for that customer, and really pull together a proposal that's going to work for them and be even better than it would have if they had just spent the 2 days doing all that research. So that's one that's really top of mind.
Amazing. And that's just really good prompt engineering, really putting the
Definitely.
time into it.
Yep. And
Fantastic.
that's really all about getting the right people in the room, really starting to have those conversations of what kind of work do you do? And I will say that sometimes when we start to have those conversations, people get anxious. They're like, why are you asking about how I do my work? Why are you asking these questions? And it's really about also building that trust to say, I want to know the things that you do so I can help you do it better, not so I can make a recommendation to eliminate your position. So there's a little bit of community building and trust building and then innovation building.
So we're back to change management 101
Yep.
and making sure that everyone feels hugged and loved and part of the team. And what are some tools, tactics, thoughts that you're using to help bring everybody to the table?
I have some experience doing that, given so much of usage of these co-pilots. The first one is whenever there is a resistance, you need to bring certain champions and give them opportunity to excel. See, always there are early adopters, and among early adopters, you need to find someone who is just for the sake of technology versus someone who can really drive impact to the business. You champion them. You give them opportunity to use their vision to drive those change and create that vision and score the early wins. Any low-hanging fruit that you can win that will set a stage for rest of the people to follow. That's scoring those low-hanging fruits and then making that as a culture for other people to follow. And systematizing that across the organization is very key in making this success happen. So with that level of continuous change culture, if you build that, every other organization within the company will pick that up and use that as a methodology.
Okay, that makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah, we integrated it with we have a thing called a kudos board where so employees can give, great job type things around our core values, and we integrated it with that and actually have it now where when you're in a meeting and somebody does something, you can take that meeting and then turn it into a kudos to send the kudos. But using it in that more connected way or connective way of saying, hey, don't you just use this to help you do this task in your job better? Use this to help you connect with somebody else. And then the other thing that we really push is by using these assistive tools in your job and by using them and doing what Margaret was talking about, bringing people in and saying how can we help you to use these things, and by encouraging that culture, as Gopal, we say is great when you get that extra 15 minutes. Yeah, you could use it to think about something new, or maybe just call somebody that you haven't talked to at the company for a while. Just get on the phone with somebody, have a conversation with your coworker that's not work related. Call a customer, not to solve an issue that they have, not to, do something tactical, but just say, hey, just wanted to see how you're doing. Things going good? How are the kids? Whatever. And make
Be a
those
human being.
human. Yes, use AI to be more human.
I think that's a really great tagline. Particularly, and I really want to emphasize this, particularly as Microsoft and others who are focusing on the well-being aspects of AI, especially as Margaret mentioned, this time of year, everybody's a little bit topped up, right? There's a lot going on. So are there other wellness features? Are there other human-centric features of AI that we can say that there have been positive impacts on work-life balance, employee well-being, anything that's been optimized in our human life that has come out of this AI revolution?
We did put out on our internet, never write an angry email again.
Yeah.
Dash AI. So, just, hey, you talk to everybody's topped off. We're all stressed. Somebody does something or doesn't do something. probably more to the point, that you felt like they really should have gotten done. You know, you're like, oh, why didn't you get this done? Yeah, just put that through AI. Say this in a really nice way. And it works great.
That's a
People,
great,
yeah.
yes,
It's a great
tone. Just
example. Russ. You know, you have that nasty gruff
I
type kid.
just I
Yeah,
just had that. Yeah, I
yeah.
was on a
You just,
call and somebody was like, "Oh yeah, no, I didn't get that done." They had like 2 weeks, and they knew it's a blocker for the next thing. And I'm sitting there going, "Ugh." But instead of typing, you know, why would you be this horrible to all of us? You suck. You know, I wrote that and then told AI to make that really, really nice. And it did a great job, actually. It was, you know, it turned it into, I think the gist of it was, you know, I'm really, oh, this is really tough for all of us at this time. And we really, you know, we need to support you to come through. Tell us how we can support you to get this. I mean, it was incredible. I was like, dang, this rocks.
and it didn't judge you at all. Or
No,
if
no
it did, it
judgment.
kept it to itself.
No judgment. No.
Right.
that's
We're
the
also
best part.
finding bringing in AI and Gen AI is helping improve employee satisfaction. So we have a junior talent program at Reply that we hire recent college grads, and we're seeing that they come in with an expectation of having the latest and greatest tools. And I love that I work for an organization that we can say that yes, we have the latest and greatest, and they come in with that expectation. And then when we work with other organizations that are struggling with maybe that net promoter score of their teammate satisfaction or teammate retention, that sometimes it has to do with the tools that you're working with, and maybe not having access to the latest and greatest. And so thinking about how you can leverage something like Copilot and Microsoft and you know, like even like a Teams premium to say like, we're investing in you through the tools that we have, and we're working really hard to make sure that we're providing for you that baseline expectation for you, so you can, you know, be better and more satisfied within your job. And so I think that's been really exciting, not just with our recent college grads and kids these days, but also with the organizations that we work with, using that as a frame to tell the story of AI. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see in job descriptions like, hey, we have AI, we have Copilot, we have these things as kind of a nugget to get people to want to work with you.
We're going to see it as a required recommended before too long. So, yeah, at least prompt engineering.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of how we can improve the experience, right? And what about in terms of, I don't want to say this is the other side, but the delivery from the employee perspective? There are AI-driven tools like Teams, especially Teams Premium, where they're optimized to foster collaboration. So you've got, I don't know about you guys, but I have a disparate team. We're spread out all over the place. So lots of people trying to work together from everywhere on the planet. How do you use tools like this that are AI enabled to make your experiences delivering back to the organization and delivering outbound to the employee optimized?
Yeah, the whole team is global now. I have teams operating in 4 or 5 different time zones across the globe. You know, some of them are 12 hours away, and it is their team sleep time while we wake up. And that collaboration has been hard. We had to find people who would be available to overlap and do it. It is not completely gone away. But what has happened is we are able to convert, especially you mentioned Teams, with the AI notes taker, we can convert that information that is discussed into a knowledge. That is the best part. You know, AI is able to take the information in a RAG model and convert that into the knowledge that people can use. And that collaboration has improved significantly. Whatever the, especially if it is a planning meeting or a decision-making meeting, it can capture the essence of it. And that shared meeting notes brings that global collaboration and improve that significantly, so that the other side of the planet doesn't feel left out with the information. Everyone is equipped with the same information, not just the information, same knowledge. Now, when you take meeting notes manually, it is the information you're capturing. The knowledge happens with, the cues you use, the kind of language you use. And when that is translated, there is so much of extra knowledge that the other team can consume. So the difference between the information and knowledge, and that being available to the people who are not physically or at the time present, is significant.
I have one example that happened recently. We were working with one organization and they had a handful of people that were kind of individual contributors. They were the only ones that knew how to do certain things, and a couple of them decided that they wanted to retire. Now, how do we make sure we don't lose that knowledge and that there's a gap within the organization? So what we actually did was we set up Teams meetings and had interviews, day-long interviews with these guys that were retiring, recorded them. Copilot captured all of their notes, and so now we're building out a database, like a knowledge database, based on all of the institutional knowledge that these gentlemen have in their brains, that we're gathering that through conversation. So it feels kind of, to Russ's point, it feels really human and it feels really empathetic, but we're also maintaining some of that knowledge and information there.
And you're making it really usable and organizationally accessible. That's really smart. Russ, did you have anything to add there?
I'd say the biggest one, you talk about delivery to the organization, the ability for the systems to take notes and digest them and make the information in that meeting digestible to anybody to get at least the gist of what's going on. I feel like that's such a big step up from the recording period of time, I'll call it, where you recorded a meeting in order to preserve the information, but now you've got transcription and you've got okay, summarize this for me, those kind of things, give me the headlines, to really be able to take action effectively. And I think the biggest thing is also now feeding those notes to agents. So when you talk about delivery to the organization and using AI to make the outcomes of a meeting more actionable, you can also look at taking the action items by just asking, what are the action items that were out of this? Okay, great. And then start to identify the ones that can be given to agents to handle. Because in many cases, they're not that complicated. There's just certain things that need to be done. And even having agents, we have an agent that writes things into RAID logs in projects, for example, that we just can feed anything that looks like it belongs in the RAID log. We feed it to that agent and it puts it in the correct RAID log for that project based on the meeting invite. So it's, it's simple things like that you can take action on out of the meetings too, that help with that delivery to the organization.
That's really smart. Okay. All right, I have one last question for you guys, and then I think we can start taking some of these audience questions that have come in, and I'll let you wrap up first. But there's a tool called Viva that Microsoft has released that I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to. It allows you to pull together some insights from all the aspects of different Microsoft products. And maybe Margaret can give us an introduction to what Viva is and how it can be used. But then also I wanted to ask, is this something you guys have seen put into practice, particularly alongside the AI packages with Copilot? I think it has a lot of potential power, a lot of juice. to identify trends in workload, collaboration, adjustments that might be needed. Margaret, do you want to lead off speaking to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I could do a whole other session just on Viva. So if anyone's interested, happy to support there. So when we think about Microsoft Viva, it really is, it's an employee experience platform. So it's made up of different Viva modules that have to do with communications, connection, and then insights and a few other things. So Viva Insights is it's an app or a tool that comes with your Microsoft Copilot license, and it allows you to drill into the data of how people are working. So there's a Copilot aspect that you can go in and you can see, like, hey, how are my people? And it's all anonymized, but how are my people using Copilot? Are they using it in Teams? Are they using it in Outlook? Where are there areas of opportunity where they're not using Copilot? So in some organizations, we see that there's really low usage in Excel, for example. And so then we have to ask the question, is it because of the tool, or is it because people don't really need it, or is it an awareness challenge? So that can really help drive how we target empowering people on Copilot. There's also another aspect to Viva Insights where you can see when people are multitasking in a meeting. How often is that happening? How often are people double or triple booked? How often are people working outside of working hours? You can set up a no meetings Friday and make sure that everyone on the team does that. So there are other kind of well-being ways of working that you can track and strategically align to. If you're seeing that there's one team that's working all day and then really late past working hours, maybe that's an opportunity to either figure out how to infuse more Gen AI innovation there, or do they not have enough people? So, and when we think about Copilot and Viva, it really is a better together story. So thinking about how both of those tools are symbiotic in nature to help organizations work smarter and make those strategic decisions around how their people are being utilized. I hope that helps.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And it does seem like a stack that plays in a loop on itself. Gopal and Russ, have either of you leveraged Viva in your organizations yet?
Not yet in our environment, but when I looked at some of the features and eventually having that as an option, some of the things that you mentioned, Margaret, as a sensing of sentiments or a conversation or connectedness that leads to certain collective mood in the organization is really important. If we can score that and continuously improve it using tools like Viva, is a great help for the organization, productivity, and employee belongingness.
Well, Gopal, when you're ready, I'm here for you.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've only used it in point instances. I had a particular team member that was just always saying yes to every meeting, and so was booked meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, never with any space to think a thought outside of what is this meeting about that I'm about to get into. And we actually used Viva, and she had to actually provide Viva information to say that she had focus time. And we had to increase that focus time over the period of the quarter, so that she was basically able to take time to think about things and how she was booking her day and things like that. So I was able to use it for that particular pattern. I haven't used it in what I would call a larger organizational context, like you're mentioning, Margaret. And one of the ways to describe Viva, other maybe a little bit more than this, is a digital adoption platform. So there are other corollary products outside of just the Microsoft suite, like a Whatfix or a Pendo or something like that, which we use on our other products to look at feature utilization and engagement time on applications and things like that. But that digital adoption, I think, that and being able to measure people's engagement with the tool set, in the case of Viva, Microsoft's tool set, is pretty impactful, especially because it's so much of a communication collaboration, not just productivity platform.
And Viva it's a real challenge, to no shade to Microsoft, but it is a challenging tool to talk about, because it's not just one particular tool. It's not just Viva Insights. It's also Viva Connections, which taps into your intranet and brings your intranet into Teams. It's Viva Engage, which is social networking and bringing people together with a social network platform or a Q&A platform, which is fantastic. It's Viva Amplify, which is all about pushing out messages via email or via Teams or via your intranet. So there's a lot that takes place as part of that employee experience within Viva. And then there's Viva Insights, which is all about those data-driven insights into how your people are working.
Right.
If I had to sum it up, I'd say it's your culture platform. It's the
Yeah.
beginnings of your data culture platform for a reasonably sized business. And so it's one of those critical things to adopt that a lot of people overlook or back burner. And I think it shouldn't be, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it's all within Microsoft, it makes it so much easier to work with if you're a Microsoft first shop. You know, when you get into non-Microsoft tools, then you get to have that technology sprawl. You get, you know, Ghost IT, you get all sorts of other solutions that are out there that don't work well together. Then it ends up being more expensive to connect everything together. So
That's right.
I really think it's a game changer out there for organizations, especially through the lens of Copilot and Viva together.
Yeah, that's where I see this, I don't know, explosive connectivity. That's really interesting. Well, you guys have been amazing. I think we're down to about 15 minutes if somebody wants to give me the thumbs up on that assessment. But I want to start taking the opportunity to wrap up and take audience questions. So guys, do you have any closing thoughts as we come to the end of our time together? Do you want to go around the room and say closing thoughts and where you see AI over the next, let's say 12 months in your business?
Yeah,
That's a
definitely more
loaded
adoption. Yeah, definitely more adoption and creatively using, especially the engineering organization is more open, and rest of the organizations, we need to start deploying readily available tool like Viva that you mentioned. That will help a lot. Um, adoption is going to increase over the next 12 months. At the same time, the new versions coming up will be more and more intense in their features, and multimodal the intelligence that is coming up is helping us with the developing new products as well based on AI capabilities. So most of us are not developing fundamental frontier models. We are the users. So that's where we depend on companies like Microsoft, Google APIs to foster our innovation. That adoption will continue to increase, and eventually what will happen is down the line, not in 12 months, beyond that, we writing code in the CTO organization will become HD, just like Russ said. We'll be reviewing it, making sure it's AI is doing the job it is supposed to do. And we may be taking 4-day week.
You're really pushing for that, Gopal. I think you're on board with the 4-day work week.
That's my takeaway here. We
Yeah,
have a
I think so.
sponsor.
Yeah.
Russ, what's your
Yeah, I'd say another. I think I have a lot of sayings I say to my team a lot, but one of the things I say to my team a lot is either you're going to be you're going to disrupt yourself, or somebody will do it for you. Whether you're a person in a job, whether you're a company, ask Blockbuster Video. It's going to change. Your job is going to change. Living just in your comfort zone and not moving forward and disrupting yourself and keeping that power in your control is a choice, but it will happen. You'll get disrupted somehow. And AI is, I think, a catalyst in speeding up that disruption process for individual workers as well as for organizations. And so when you think about the individual worker, nobody knows how you do your job better than you do. And so using AI, nobody's going to come up with a way to disrupt that job maybe better than you. And so take that power, use it, and leverage AI to keep control of your career trajectory, of your work trajectory as you move forward.
Yeah, and I'll close this,
You're on your way back to the mountains, my friend?
I'll close this out.
No, but I love the mountains, Jeff.
I love the mountains.
4
too.
o'clock, it's
I
already
know.
getting dark.
Let's
Jeff's
go.
a mountain guy. So
Yeah.
what mountain, Jeff?
I thought you said I don't.
Not listening
What?
to us.
What are you, a fucking bat? I can't stand it.
Me neither.
Well, I'm thrilled to be able to close out and think about how Gen AI is
All right.
to
Hold on one second. I'm putting on a sweater. Give me a second.
to both us at Reply and then to the customers that we work with. So, Gen AI is core to who we are as an organization, thinking about how we can innovate and help other organizations transform. And every day it's getting more and more powerful. So it's really, really essential that organizations have a strategic lens on how they want to think about Gen AI. And if they don't know where to start, whether that's with Copilot or with Viva, I personally feel like the place to start is right with us at Reply, because we can help you with that. But it really is about making sure that you are starting to, if you're not already thinking about Gen AI, now is your time to think about where you can bring it in. And I always think that if people are at the heart of your business and you want to help bring them along on the journey, not make this change happen to them. So really think about how you can empower your people strategically, through Copilot, through thinking about your productivity tools, through collaboration, through bringing people together to unlock future transformation.
I love that. I'm all about human-centric AI, and I think this has been a really fun conversation because it's been so focused on that. So thank all of you for bringing that. We have a couple of questions from the audience. Are you ready? This is where it gets exciting. One of them is regulatory, sort of. The question is, what security and compliance questions do you normally ask of prospective AI vendors before implementation?
And Kate, before we jump in with everyone's questions here, I'll field them because I think it would be amiss for you to not to share your thoughts as well as an
Aww,
executive in the space. So I'll field these
nice.
audience questions, but
Thanks, John.
and since you've asked that first question, I'd love for you to kind of share your thoughts around the question itself.
This is because John knows I'm a total regulatory nerd. And I would say these are the questions you need to ask your vendors, all of them, not just AI vendors. It's what products are you using that use AI? Because you can stack AI on top of AI, and that creates a potential delta in what you're seeing in your outputs that you can't predict or control. So your third-party vendor due diligence needs to become very aware of what your AI stack is in your underlying products. So what does that mean for you? Your Salesforce, your products that you use every day and maybe don't think about as AI enabled. Adobe Acrobat is now AI enabled. So you have to start being very diligent about your average software product diligence. And then you also have to due diligence your Claude and your ChatGPT. And of course, you're already doing Microsoft. So there you go.
Maybe Russ, Gopal, and any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I mean, from a pure question perspective, of course, there's the core ones of, is the data being used to train larger models. I mean, that should be anything you ask of any AI provider. Are my prompts and my result sets localized, or are they being fed back into a larger model? That's probably when you think about at least the chat-based LLMs, that's the core question you need to have answered. Depending on your company, you might have additional questions of, is the model stored, within the bounds of any national, area or something like that, just because, having data leave certain, national boundaries can be a problem depending on your industry. So there may be some more industry specific questions that you need to ask, but they're not any different than, in many cases, than you would ask any other vendor that was providing a SaaS-based product. And in the end, AI is a SaaS product for the most part, unless you're deploying your own models locally, in which case you control them anyway. So, but I'd say just follow the best practices for any SaaS-based providers, as Kathleen is talking about, and just make that your baseline.
Yeah,
Amazing.
add to what Russ just mentioned. I had to go through training our legal counsel and that team in order to draft a policy on AI usage, especially those public models where people can cut and paste any corporate information and get that for their productivity. That's a great usage, but can't we use something local to our environment or local to the SaaS subscription within the restrictions of our corporate policy? Those are the things I had to go through. And now everyone is aware. Initially, it was a major challenge to cross that hurdle to bring the productivity. At the same time, not just disclose something inadvertently. Now the policy is clear. People are aware. It is going to get better.
Amazing. And I think it's funny because you've kind of answered Brooke's follow-up question, being from California, right? How would one prepare for transparency requests, especially within that state? But I think you've kind of just covered that. Margaret, I wanted to field this question to you, and I'll apologize if you're not the right person for this, but I think since you are one of our partners in the space, you might know. But Jeffrey Mina asked, how do you overcome the incompleteness problem with Copilot, right? Whether that's missing items in long meetings or the inability to review emails that's longer than 30 or 90-day summary. Is that no longer a problem, or how do you address that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would love to say it's no longer a problem. I think it's less of a problem now than it was this time last year. I will say that some of it has to do with prompting. So thinking about your prompt, and we talk about prompt ingredients as having to have context, a goal, a time frame, a source, and expectations. So thinking about if you have the expectation that you want Copilot, for example, to look at your emails from the last year and a half, that might be a lot of information. But if you think about it in 3 different prompts of like, hey, look at it during this time frame, these 3 months, these 3 months, these 3 months, you are helping Copilot be its best self. And then thinking about also that human intervention there, that it really is important that if you're looking at the results and maybe you asked it to write an email or a response and you're just assuming that it's 100% right, it's really important to make sure that you are intervening before you send that off. I often like to talk about Copilot or any other Gen AI as like, it's the smartest 5-year-old you've ever met, meaning it really wants to make you happy. Or it's like a dog, right? It really wants to make you happy. It really wants your feedback on how it's doing. And so it's a combination of giving it really clear and concise directions, a framework in which it can excel, and then tell it where it didn't do well and tell it where it did do well, so then it can get better. And then just make sure that it didn't make anything up.
Amazing, amazing. And I think I have one last question, and I'll field it to you. I know we alluded to it a little bit, but Pedro, Castellanos had asked, what is Viva and the use cases? So if you want to kind of just give us some additional color. I know we covered it a little bit, but maybe some additional color to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, Viva is a little bit of a challenging thing to talk about. It really is kind of the people side or the engagement side of bringing all of your Microsoft tools and technologies together. So, part of the Viva suite, it's about 9 different modules. So, there is a connections piece, which is all about thinking about your intranet. If your intranet's built on SharePoint in Microsoft, it can help make your intranet better, and it can create a nice feed and bring that into Teams. It's also about making sure you're targeting the right messages to the right people via something called Viva Amplify, and then building connections socially through an app called Viva Engage, which used to be known as Yammer. So that's kind of the connection piece. There's also an insights piece, which is all about Viva Insights, and we talked a lot about that. That's a data-driven backend, but there's also additional pieces in the insights vertical around Viva Pulse, which is sending out really quick surveys to people to gather insights around how they're doing or feedback. And then there's another Viva Glint, which is a larger survey tool, which you could use to replace maybe the larger surveys that are out there for end of year teammate satisfaction surveys and those large surveys. You can bring that right into Teams, and then there are other modules as well. So some organizations go all in on Viva and they're like, great, we want to completely revamp how we work together and think about that employee experience through people, learning, connections, insights, all of that. Or some organizations pick and choose and only use some of the modules. So Pedro, I'm happy to talk to you more about Viva, and I can even demo it for you. And we help a lot of organizations think about the overall strategy of not just Copilot or building out Copilot agents or Power Platform, but also bringing all of it together right through Viva and Teams, and meeting people where they are to help them be at their best authentic self at work.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you, folks. This has been fantastic. Kate, I'd love for you to leave the final thoughts before I do some just closing remarks.
Your best authentic self at work. I love that. And also the idea of elevating your human self by using AI to get some of the things that are less impactful, like maybe your timesheet, off your plate, right? We can be our best teammates, our best selves if we sometimes if we just pick up the phone and remember to talk to each other. So I have some fantastic takeaways from this conversation. Thank you, John, for inviting me. This was really great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, folks, I'm so happy to have this group talk about these important topics, and more importantly, getting some really good use cases for it as well, which is the true value. With that said, on behalf of C Vision International, I'd like to say thank you for all of you. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so I'm gonna my team's gonna send a thank you email to all of our participants. We'll give away a way to contact our panelists as well in case they have any additional questions. I'll link their emails there so you have an opportunity to connect. But on behalf of C Vision International, if we don't see you before the end of the year, we'd like to say happy holidays and happy New Year to everyone. And I'd like to say thank you to our partners, Valorum Reply and Microsoft, for being a part of the discussion. With that said, thank you, folks, and looking forward to seeing you guys all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.